When I was in high school, I lived in a really small town in Texas. It was the kind of place where everyone was either related to each other or hated each other. I had no family there, so yeah. But I did have a pretty blonde girlfriend, and I was pretty hated for that too. Nothing major, just petty harassment, occasional fights, but it had been escalating. So that's why, on Valentine's Day, my girlfriend and I decided to skip the school dance and just stay in and watch a movie at her house while her parents went out. Just better to avoid trouble. We borrowed her dad's car, a little Honda hatchback, and went into town. We stopped at the video store for a movie and went to the Dairy Queen for some ice cream and then headed home. Now, she lives in the complete boonies, out in the middle of the woods along a lonely road with no streetlights. We're chatting, eating our blizzards, when all of a sudden a car comes up behind us. No big deal. But what was a very big deal was that when the headlights flooded the interior of our car, I saw two hands on the back seat and a head coming from the hatchback part of the car. As soon as the lights hit, the head and hands retreated back down. A solid chill ran through my entire body. I slowly reached down and pulled out my pocket knife, the only thing I had. She saw me and asked me what was wrong. Loudly, I said, "Nothing. I just have to stop at my friend's house real quick." She knew that was bullshit. I didn't have any friends. I pulled over at the next house that came up and jumped out of the car, yelling at her to jump out too. She jumped out in total confusion. I flipped the driver's seat forward and lunged into the back seat in full maniac mode. He popped up like a jack-in-the-box with empty hands waving, Hey, what y'all up to tonight?" It was some weird kid from our high school who we had never in our entire lives spoken to before. Ever. I said, "What the holy fuck are you doing in our car?" His reply was, "I thought you guys were going to the dance, and I was just hitching a ride." We sat there staring at him with our mouths open, wondering what to do. He tried to act real cool, and obviously we were in the middle of nowhere in some random person's driveway, so whatever he was playing was forgotten. We actually ended up driving him to the dance and dropping him off. The whole time, he's telling us to come inside with him. Yeah, no. We dropped his ass off and noped out of there as soon as we could. As soon as he got out of the car, my girlfriend started crying and shaking. She was so freaked out. I have no idea what he was trying to do when the lights caught him crawling out of the hatchback. I fucking hated that high school. I am a 19-year-old female. When I was 8, right around Valentine's Day, I received one of those small manila envelopes in the mail. It had no return address, and it was sent from another state that I didn't know anyone from. When I opened it, it was simply a folded sheet of computer paper with a picture of Linus from Charlie Brown, holding a heart and his blanket. It appeared to be drawn and colored by hand. On the inside, it was a short Valentine's Day message with a small personal detail about my life that only someone close to me would know. Naturally, I thought that it was probably my grandparents or my parents trying to do something nice for me. Every year, I received one of these cards around Valentine's Day. Every year, it had a picture of Linus, included a detail about my life, was typed in the same font, and was from a different state. For example, the Valentine's Day after I adopted my dog, Bailey, the card said, "Would Bailey be jealous if you were my Valentine?" I kept most of these, and managed to find a few as I was rummaging through old junk. When I got older, I finally mentioned it to my grandparents, fully expecting it to be them. But they swore that they weren't sending them. I honestly believe it, because I had expressed my concerns by this point, and they aren't the type that want to scare me, and neither are my parents. The only other family I have in the US are my dad's parents, who don't speak English well, and have never owned a computer. They immigrated here, and wouldn't know anyone in any other states. Aside from my parents and my brother, who find it strange as well, I have no other family. I still get the cards every year, always the same, except for one Valentine's Day a few years ago. I received a stuffed teddy bear and a big chocolate heart along with the card. Needless to say, I didn't eat the chocolate, and I searched that fucking bear, half convinced that there was a hidden camera. After that year, I started just receiving the cards again. In any case, as a child, it was sort of exciting and mysterious, like a secret admirer. Now, it's just unnerving. I've racked my brain for years, trying to figure out who it could possibly be, and every time, I've come up empty-handed. It still makes me uneasy, but if this person wanted to hurt me, I think they would have done it by now. I've never felt threatened by them, so I don't think there's much I can do about it. The main thing I want to know is why, what's the point, and who. I may never find out. To preface this, it was Valentine's Day, and my girlfriend and I are college students at a small school in Kentucky. Due to the way that the college works, it's hard for a lot of students to afford to keep up with having their cars on campus. This means you typically have to walk everywhere unless you have a bike. I was among the unlucky this semester. The evening had rolled around, and we were thinking of semi-romantic things that we could do together, and we arrived upon ordering food off of Uber Eats. Not the most glamorous, but I offered to pay. Most of the restaurants were closed, but Taco Bell was open, so naturally we ordered from there. Unbeknownst to us though, there were no active drivers at that time, probably due to road conditions at the time being freezing and snowy. So, the app defaulted to the setting where you can walk and pick it up. There wasn't an option to cancel it, so I decided I would walk the 1.5 miles to pick up the food. I know most people at this point wouldn't be too keen on walking in the snowy, freezing conditions at that time of night, but I'm a broke college student who just spent his last few spare dollars on food. So, with a hug and a kiss from my girlfriend, I started off on my journey to get the food. Walking through campus at night isn't a problem for me, since I'm a 5'9" male. But when you make it through campus and into the residential area of the town, that's when things do tend to get sketchy. I had made it through campus and was about a quarter of the way to my destination, when in the distance, I saw another man walking down the street. Initially, two things put me at unease. The first one being that he was wearing one of those long trench coats that you typically associate with sketchy men, and the other being the conditions outside. I mean, logically, no one should be walking around in these conditions, as they were literally cold enough to freeze the sweat in your hair. I pushed these thoughts back, assuming he was either in a similar situation as me, or he just really enjoyed this type of weather. I did switch sides of the street though, as I'm a tad socially awkward, and hate talking to random people that I don't really know. We both continue walking, and pass one another, and it seemingly goes off without a hitch. Neither of us acknowledged the other, and we just kept walking. But, being the wary person I was, I looked over my shoulder often in these kind of situations. He was walking the same direction he had been. Good. I kept walking, and still throwing the occasional glance over my shoulder for safety. After about 2 minutes after we passed, I cast a glance over my shoulder, and I noticed the man was now walking in my direction, and a bit faster than I was. This creeped me the fuck out, and I started to walk a bit faster. I couldn't flat out run because of the road conditions. At this moment, I noticed the man pick up speed until we were side by side, on opposite sides of the street. When he caught up to me, he started yelling at me, and I saw something fall from the sleeve of his jacket, like he had been concealing it. When it hit the ground, it made a loud, metallic clatter, like a piece of metal bar, or even a large knife. At that moment, I grasped the danger of the situation, and my fight or flight instincts kicked in. Ready to defend myself, I pulled out my pocket knife as I noticed him starting to make his way across the street. It was at this moment that I said something to the effect of, "Hey man, I don't want any trouble. I've got a knife." When I said that, the man stopped in his tracks and said,
"Oh, I thought you were someone else who just attacked me."
I played it off cool by replying, "It seems like you got the wrong person, my dude." And he said a quick yeah, and retreated to the side of the street and continued in the other direction. And I thought I was safe. I continued on my trek to Taco Bell, and after this experience, naturally, I was all the more weary. As I was looking over my shoulder, I noticed the man from before on the same side of the street that I was, and I just walked as fast as I could to the Taco Bell. I kept looking back, and I always spotted him, except at some point, the man just mysteriously vanished. I made it back to campus without any more events, but I had a hand on my pocket knife the entire time. To this day, I have no clue what this man's intentions were, but they didn't seem good.